Subscribe and click the notification bell to never miss another scary story. Studies show that people care more about their pets than they do other people. I'm not surprised. Pets are so innocent and often helpless. They can't be twisted except by human hands. But the pets we are talking about today are different. These pets are far from natural. From the ghosts of departed pets to demonic creatures that only look like them. These are 10 allegedly true paranormal pet stories. If you want your story to appear in a video, go to darknessprevails.org, create an account, and share it with us today. My dog came home 2 months after being put down. By Anonymous. This story is about my family's pet dog. He passed away a few months ago. I personally have not experienced these incidents myself, and therefore these accounts will come from my family. It all started mid-February when we had to put down our 14-year-old golden retriever after he began to have severe seizures. After one such episode lasted over an hour, we rushed to the vet to have him put down and laid to rest. We knew he wouldn't make it until morning anyway, the poor thing. It is now the end of March and the start of April as of writing this, when the encounters with our dog that wasn't supposed to be alive anymore happened. The first encounter happened with my dad, who was in the kitchen. He heard a sudden bang in the living room. When he came out of the kitchen, literally having to just turn the corner, he saw our dog lying on the floor like he always did. He never said anything else about it. My dad's never been a believer of the paranormal either, but this really does have him shaken up. My sister, Kay, who was in the 8th grade, came out of her room on the top floor and walked towards the staircase. That's when she saw our dog lying at the bottom of the stairs, sleeping as usual. What used to be usual. Being half asleep, she stepped over him to do her normal routine. It was only later that she realized what she had actually witnessed. The last encounter comes from my mother. She told me the other day that she dreamt of our dog scratching at her bedroom door to be let in, so he could lie down and go to bed with them. She got up and walked to the door, and even remembers saying, "Come to bed, Max," after opening the door. For the most part, my family members are extremely happy about him coming home, but I'm not too convinced right now that it is actually him. I am a believer in the paranormal, and there are things that we cannot explain in this world. As of this moment, our home is under construction as we are renovating the kitchen floor and cabinets. But I do wonder sometimes if the activity will continue once the renovation is done. That Little Mouse by Carlos. My neighbor's house was always creepy. There was always furniture that was damaged or broken, dishes smashed or in pieces, and the neighbors were creepy too. Our 2 dogs loved to go in their yard. It was like they were naturally drawn to it. They had a problem with insects and animals in their yard, and one day one of my dogs, Jackie, caught a field mouse there. It was small with a long tail, big eyes, and the ugliest face you'd ever seen. But for some reason, Jackie never wanted to go outside after that. On a Wednesday night, the neighbors invited me over. I wasn't surprised, as Wednesday nights they are never busy. I walked over to their house and immediately turned to a sour face. That same exact mouse is on the wall, red and moist and everything. The neighbors had hung it up. Trying not to be rude, I simply sat down. The kitchen light turned on even though there were 0 people near it. The dinner was casual, a pork with steamed corn. The dishes were all plastic. The husband of the so-called family said this while we were joking around. "We stopped using glass after the first spirit." Spirit? What is he talking about, I thought. I didn't feel very hungry after that. I said goodnight and walked home. I looked back at that old house, and I saw a woman standing in the window, lights off, and she was extremely tall. I began to run home as my face went pale. That whole night I heard noises from the neighbors. My dogs stopped going over there completely. A few months after that, we saw that the neighbors started planting a man-made garden in the back. They had a big, beautiful rose bush. But as autumn and winter came around, they would clip the flowers off of the bush and preserve them all year round. It was around that time that I realized the neighbors always kept everything that had died. The mouse, old pets, even the roses on that bush. It sent chills down my spine. They were like hoarders for things that had died. On one particular Saturday, I was walking home from working at Pizza Hut. As I was walking from the driveway to the front door of my house, I heard a bizarre sound coming from the neighbors. It sounded like someone took a dozen dishes and threw them off of the roof of the house, letting them shatter into a million pieces below. It was so loud, I soon found myself running over to their door. I knocked and shouted, asking if everything was okay. When I rapped my knuckles against the door was open, and I slowly peered inside. What I saw before I ran away, praying that it was just a nightmare, was a person kneeling in the floor, crying over the badly preserved body of that old field mouse. I never bothered going back to the neighbors, even after they invited us to multiple things. I promised myself I would never go back, and I haven't, not in 2 years. Not My Dog by Ty. I live in Dorset, England, a hotspot for paranormal activity in the UK. I was 14 when this occurred, and I had always been very cynical of anything vaguely related to ghosts, monsters, and the like. This was partially down to my highly non-religious father, who would avoid any such topic when my curious mind went asking questions. This skeptical outlook changed, however, one bleak night in the dead of winter. School had ended the previous day, so I had the opportunity to stay up as late as I wanted. Of course, to a reasonable extent. Taking advantage of this long-awaited late-night privilege, I stayed up until around 2 in the morning. It helped that my father was working late nights, so he came back early in the morning. After aimlessly scrolling through the depths of the internet, I finally got my fill for the day and shut down my computer, going to bed. Now I was used to being in the house alone. The normal routine was to let the dog out for a while, then let him back in and proceed to lock all the doors. I never felt afraid, as my dog would always sleep near me. His name was Ty. Ty was a huge German Shepherd who didn't take any crap. After letting Ty out, I locked the doors and proceeded to go upstairs to my room, where I crashed straight away and was met with the comforting yet utter silence of nighttime, as we lived in a rural area. Then there was the comforting breathing of my dog that broke the silence as he walked back into the room and sat beside me. I lay on my side, peering into the darkness of the room, as the dark silhouette of Ty lay there, breathing up and down. As I begin to drift off to sleep, I wake up abruptly with the loud and unmistakable sound of Ty barking and whining. He needs to be let back in, I thought, as I scrambled groggily to my feet in the darkness. Then an overwhelming feeling of dread came over me. I remembered the breathing. I remembered the heaving silhouette of that thing in the corner. I darted my eyes to the corner of the room, and I see 2 red eyes staring back at me. I scream so loud it makes my voice hoarse, then take off in a full-fledged run for the light, only for the brightness of my room to reveal I was alone, and the eyes and the silhouette were both gone. Now hyperventilating, I begin to try and rationalize this in my head, but to no avail. I go down cautiously and let Ty in the house, making sure all the doors and windows are still locked. They were. I then called my father, making sure he'd be coming home soon, and I proceeded to check every nook and cranny of the house, but I was alone. I do not know what the thing crouched in my room was that night, but it was nothing from this world, I'm sure of it. My Dog Saw Something by Alexander. I don't really know how to start with these stories, so I'm just going to explain what happened. We own a beautiful dog, a half-husky, half-German shepherd breed. It was a normal day with my family over at my house. I don't recall exactly why we were in my mother's room, but we were, when suddenly my dog began to growl, straight at my mom's closet. My mom's closet is a drag closet with a whole mirror in it. At first, we thought he was just barking at his own reflection, when he suddenly started to run back and forth, now looking at the ceiling, following something that our eyes could not see. He begins to growl very low yet loud. He then runs through the hall, all the while still staring at the ceiling, barking and still growling. My dog stops in the kitchen and begins to growl at the top corner of the ceiling. Our face is visibly shaken. My aunt suddenly begins yelling, "In the name of Jesus, get out. You're not welcome here." Then everything stopped. My dog simply laid down and started licking his paws, before turning happily to us, staring at us like nothing happened at all. Then he pranced away. There have been many other experiences where that dog has seen something. I believe it may have been a spirit, a demon or ghost, I'm sure. This was by far one of the creepiest things my dog has ever done, and why he did that, I don't think we'll ever know. But a dog's duty is to protect those in the house. What was he protecting us from? What would he need to protect us from that came from my mother's closet? My Dog? By Anonymous. Every time I remember this experience, it gives me chills. Growing up, I've always wanted a dog, and after years of begging my parents, they actually finally got me one. A Yorkie, to be exact. I named him Junior. Junior always had been a very hyper dog, and after years we're very used to it by now. One day I was sitting on my bed, concentrating on my phone screen, entirely unaware of my surroundings like I was most times. I walk out of my room and see Junior lying on the living room couch. I go and try playing with him by stealing a nearby toy of his, but Junior just laid there looking at me and not moving. This was odd since he usually would jump right away and try to grab the toy from you. I quickly brushed it off. Maybe he was tired. I then looked for my mother throughout the house, but realized she must have gone outside, so I walked from the kitchen through the living room and to my brother's room to peek outside the window facing outside, while Junior followed me. After I look out the window, I felt shivers down my spine as my mouth hung open and my eyes went wide, because I found my mom outside, and she was being followed around by Junior. How could that be? I thought. I just saw Junior behind me. When I turned around, the thing I thought was Junior was gone, and there was no sign of him anywhere except for outside. I was so confused and frustrated, just wanting an answer. I mean, I vividly remember even his collar as he was walking behind me, doing that metallic jingle as he walked. There was no way it was just a dream or my imagination. I quickly made my way outside and asked my mother, who was now at the doorstep, how long she had been walking Junior. She said about 15 minutes. After explaining to her what I just saw, she told me that it was probably just my own imagination and that I needed some sleep. But I know what I saw, and I will never forget that feeling I got when I looked out the window. My Kittens Saved My Life by Angelina. Last Christmas, I got 2 new kittens. They were cute and comforting. I loved them so much, those nice, sweet, and amazing little things. The next day, I could not wait to play with them, so I got up and went into the bathroom where we were keeping them. Because the kittens were so newborn, we could not let them stay out and explore just yet. When I got in the bathroom, they were just sitting on their beds and eating their food. I pet them for a few minutes, then played with them. Keep in mind that my bathroom does have a mirror, so when I was petting my cat, he looked up at the mirror with the most terrified look on his little face. I slowly looked at the mirror, and I saw something that horrified me. There was a dark figure standing behind me. I turned in an instant, yet nothing was there. I looked back toward the kittens and freaked out, because the kittens were gone. I left the bathroom, looked all over the house, looked outside, and when I came back, they were still somehow in the bathroom, as if they'd only vanished for a moment. I felt relieved for a second, until the banging began. It was coming from the bathroom door, but as quick as it started, it all just stopped. I was so shocked I couldn't move. I have no idea what happened that day. It was just as weird as it was creepy. Demon Dog and Shadow Cat by Anonymous. It happened when I was in 3rd grade, about 8 or 9 years old. I have no recollection of the day before these events, and the animals I'm mentioning in this story are Coach and Rocco, both still living today. Coach is a big golden retriever. He's very loving and will sleep in your bed. He's known for loving only me and my uncle. Rocco is the cat, who loves the scent of chemicals and will throw up in his own food dish. He didn't really care about me at the time, but on the night in question, they were both in my room. I don't remember falling asleep, or the activities of the day at all, but I do remember waking up. I was on my side staring at something. I think I was staring at Coach. He was asleep. But somehow it also wasn't Coach. I know my dog, and he doesn't look like that. Whatever I was looking at that I thought was Coach, its eyes were red and dull like a fly's. His mouth was slit open, looking like a gruesome smile. It was awful. I closed my eyes in fear, not wanting to move, and when I opened them sometime later, it was gone. After being too scared to go to sleep for a while, I finally managed to drift off. But it wasn't over just yet. I awoke again, this time sitting up. I was staring at my feet when this silhouette of a cat walked out of the shadows and into the moonlight that was streaming in from my window. I couldn't feel it though, and it seemed to hover. I closed my eyes, opened them again, and it was gone. I laid back down, more confused than ever. I was debating whether to turn on my lava lamp on my nightstand, or to just run downstairs screaming. I chose the lava lamp. Maybe it was the most realistic waking dreams I've ever had, or there was something in my room that night. Something more than just Coach and Rocco. Chico. My family lived in a more country setting in central New York. We owned upwards of 20 acres of land. At the time, our neighbors were getting a divorce, so the ex-wife, on the day of them moving out, came to my family's house and asked us if we would take their cat. And if we didn't, it would just become a stray. My dad, not wanting a cat, but not wanting to disappoint his begging children on their birthday, accepted the cat. And as the door closed and our neighbor left, my dad promptly walked to the back door and threw the cat outside. Then he placed a food bowl by the door. The cat's name was Chico. He was a black cat with long, fair fur, but his eyes were his most prominent feature. They were golden with black freckles in them. My dad said he was to be an outside cat, strictly. Eventually and slowly, the cat would wait outside the door and jump in when we opened the door the slightest. Since my mother was home and not my dad, my mom tolerated it, as long as he didn't use the restroom inside the house. He never did, though. Whenever he had to go out, he would either brush your leg or meow by the door. So eventually, my dad allowed him to come in whenever he wanted. And soon enough, he became my cat. I mean, I didn't pick him, but he chose me. I would wake up in the morning in my bunk bed, to Chico gently kneading my back with his 2 front paws. My mom was wondering who put the cat on my bed, because my bed was 6 feet off the ground, but no one confessed, even as this happened every day after that. My room was in the bottom floor. The cat was never introduced to this floor, and we had a gate that attempted to block him from going downstairs. Yet the cat managed to get into this area and get on my bed somehow. Anyway, Chico and I bonded very quickly, and throughout the 3 years that I had him, he demonstrated many other feats of wisdom and patience that no regular cat would be able to demonstrate. For example, when my mom told him to go get your boy, he knew exactly where to find me. He knew what it meant and how to get me, and he would bring me back to my mom. This cat would also allow me to carry him over my shoulders like a shepherd would to a sheep. He didn't care, he simply tolerated it. He also knew who deserved what. My brother wasn't very nice to him, and kicked him on occasion. Eventually, he went to my brother's room, crawled under his queen-sized bed, and sprayed pee in the most inconvenient place. Every time my brother kicked him was another time he would have to clean pee out from under his bed. Eventually, my brother was nice to the cat and would no longer kick him. The cat had trained a human, basically. And last but not least, this was a trick I learned very quickly, on a night when Chico was out late. I do not know what made me do this. Maybe I was worried and didn't know what else to do. But I went out on our back porch and yelled at the top of my 8-year-old lungs to 20+ acres of forest, "Chico!" And always within 30 seconds, I would see a pair of golden eyes come trotting along up the steps to our back porch. And there at my side would be Chico. He was my cat, and I was his boy. Eventually, Chico's eating slowed, and we found out that he had leukemia. I didn't know what that meant, and I just knew he was going to be gone soon, and that I should be really sad. He got thinner and thinner until one day he just vanished. No sign of him whatsoever. This is where I had my experience. I was about 11 then, and it was about 3 or 4 months after his passing. I was home alone doing homework for 15 minutes while waiting for my sister-in-law to come and watch me. Suddenly, I felt the urge to look to my right, and I saw a small light, lights in the shape of my old cat's eyes. Suddenly, there Chico was, walking out of my parents' bedroom doorway. He looked up at me, then trotted away, tightly hugging the wall as he normally did. Maybe to tell me he was okay, or maybe to check up on me. I didn't follow after him because I was too scared. Not scared that he would hurt me, but I didn't understand and I didn't know what to do. What if he approached me? That was too much for an 11-year-old boy to comprehend. Instead, I immediately called my sister-in-law. She didn't completely believe me over the phone, but when she saw my face, she knew I wasn't making it up. Chico was something more than a cat, at least to me, and I'll never forget him. My Cat Saved Me by Koda. This happened when I was around 14 years old. I had just had the lecture of a lifetime. My parents scolded me for having an outburst, where I suddenly yelled at my stepdad. It was 1 p.m. on a Sunday. They had sent me to my room where I was forced to stay in bed without my phone and reflect on myself. So I was there crying my eyes out, and after a while I fell asleep. When I woke up, I had no idea what time it was. I could tell that it was nighttime though, because everything was incredibly dark. I felt cold and clammy. I listened for any signs of my parents being awake still, but heard nothing. It was then that I heard a light tapping sound coming from my glass window. At first, I thought it was my cat, as he sometimes does this at night. I got down from my loft bed, preparing to open the window to let him in. In my hazy state of mind, I wasn't really thinking about other possibilities. I reached for the cord to draw the blinds. My vision was blurry a bit, as I had gotten up so quickly. Just as my vision was coming back, there was another series of taps, 5 of them. Okay, Koda, I'm coming," I said to my black cat, who was no more than a year old at the time. But as it turns out, it wasn't him. Instead, there was a dark silhouette of a person. I could not make out any distinct features. Everything was just black. My window was quite close to the ground, and I could tell that it was crouching. "What the heck?" I said aloud. Whatever the heck this thing was, I didn't want anything to do with it. I knew I couldn't run to my parents because they were probably already asleep, and I couldn't just call the cops because they had taken my phone. I began to feel lightheaded, and I could feel my body getting colder. I started having cold sweats as I stared into the darkness at this figure. There were no streetlights in front of my house because I live at a dead-end neighborhood. The entity reached up to knock on the window once again. A horrific thought plagued my mind. The only thing separating me from this figure was only an inch of glass. If it were to throw a rock through the glass, it could get in. I had absolutely no idea what to do. I quickly pulled my blinds back down and crawled back into bed, hoping it would just go away. The tapping continued in a series of 5s and would start up every 30 seconds. I pulled my blanket over my head, and like a child, I surrounded myself with my stuffed animals. And yeah, I know, kinda strange. The tapping ceased though. I finally felt myself beginning to relax. After lying there for what felt like an eternity, I was able to close my eyes and attempt to go back to sleep. It was at that moment when my worst fear came true. A deafening cracking sound echoed through my bedroom. It startled me into a scream. I looked over at the window and I could see little pieces of glass lying on the windowsill. I didn't dare get out of bed. The blinds were still closed, but I could see them swaying back and forth. Then a long black hand reached through them. But the blinds didn't part like they normally would. Instead, it was like the hand melted through them. This was not a person coming through my window. I had no idea what it was. The fingers looked withered and unnaturally long. I saw another hand making its way into my room, and then the head of the thing. It was twisted in a way that I cannot describe, but its eyes, those did look human, yet they seemed to bulge out of the creature's head. It crawled on all 4s, dragging its legs behind it. Everything looked mangled. It made its way across my floor, and at this point, I was prepared to get out of there, not caring if I stepped on glass. I didn't break eye contact with the thing. I sat there in stunned silence, yet in my head I was screaming over and over, What What? What? Suddenly, out of nowhere, Koda came bolting in, bowed up with claws extended. He hissed as he attempted to pounce on the creature, but it was as if he leapt at nothing but air. It let out the most horrifying sound I'd ever heard, like 1,000 different creatures in pain. That's the only way I can describe it. And the worst part was, its mouth was simply a gaping black hole in its face, one that opened unnaturally wide. Koda jumped once more. The thing screamed as it pulled itself back through the window. I sat there in shock. The creature was gone, and my cat had saved me. My cat let out a final hiss and silently walked over to the bed. He stared up with me with bright green eyes. My face stung with the beginning of tears. He let out a reassuring meow and padded back over to the window, where he curled up on the floor and fell asleep. I thanked him in a whisper. If my cat hadn't showed up right when he did, I do not know what that thing would have done to me. But I'm sure it's needless to say that I got chewed out again when my parents saw the window. Something Scared the Cat by Anonymous. I live in Germany, and this little incident happened about 3 years ago. I forgot about it until today. I'm 16, but you could probably already consider me a crazy cat lady. I own 3 cats by the names of Lily, Luna, and Laura. One afternoon, I came home from school. I was basically home alone except for my aunt and cousin, who were living downstairs. It was a normal day. I came home, ate lunch, fed the cats, things I do every day. After all of that was done, I decided to go up into the attic, where my room was, and watch some TV. My attic is really small, and only fits my bed and a TV. I sat down on the bed and turned the TV on. Then I began to draw some random stuff. One of my cats joined me, and it didn't take long for the others to do the same. Suddenly, one of the cats started acting weird. They seemed scared and nervous and got up from the bed. Under my bed, there is a little space of about 4 inches. All 3 of the cats gathered in front of my bed and were staring underneath it, hissing at something aggressively. I was insanely creeped out. I quickly raced down from the attic, my cats following me, with terrified looks on their little faces. And once we got downstairs, they stopped for a brief moment, all 3 of them, to look back up the stairs, as if something had followed us down. They hissed before running away. Everyone told me that the cats were probably overreacting. They are weird animals after all. I'm hoping that the cats are just foolish or crazy, but who knows? It may have been a spirit passing by, or something worse. Pets are the best kind of people. They keep us warm, they keep us happy, and best of all, they keep us safe. So everyone watching this who has a little furry buddy beside them, give them a good petting and a kiss for me, and always remember what they don't even realize they do for us. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, you can send me your stories by creating an account at darknessprevails.org and posting your story today. If you want to support this channel further, go to patreon.com/darknessprevails. Donating any amount will get your name in the credits, and you'll be able to download ad-free MP3s of each episode for as long as you donate. Or consider clicking that shop button below, or go to teespring.com/darkprevails to get some of my creepy merchandise for Halloween. It really helps the channel out. Thank you. Now, here are my 5 favorite early comments from the previous full episode about 5 creepy cults. Hideous5 says, "Oh no, I'm first." Well, that's the first time I've seen anyone disappointed because they're first. Congrats, I guess? Frozen Raichu says, "Will you join my Darkness Prevails cult?" Only if we drink the Kool-Aid first. Wonder Woman says, "Sometimes when I'm home alone, I like to go into my garden cover myself in dirt, and pretend to be a carrot. What that has to do with cults, I have no freaking idea, but there it is. Kawaii Ale says, to turn in a story, does it have to be on computer or both? You can do it from anywhere, as long as you create an account on the website. Avi says, hey, catching up on 25 plus Darkness Prevails videos is the highlight of my day. More like the highlight of your next 2 weeks, good god, that's a lot of content. Enjoy. Anyways guys, that brings us to the end of this Darkness Prevails episode. More scary stories are coming soon, so stay tuned. Until next time, here are the credits to my patrons who continue to donate. They're awesome people. Remember, this world is a strange one, so stay safe out there, and stay creepy.